Good day to you, friend. Seamus here. Thank you for joining me today for something a little bit different. This is not a fairy tale. It's not a folk story by any means. It doesn't happen once upon a time, many, many years ago. I guess you could say it's a modern fable, a modern day fable. That's good. It's called simply The Hound Dog on the Porch, and let's just get right to it. It seems not that very many years ago, certainly within my lifetime, a decade or three or four ago, there was two men that lived in a big city, and they had been friends forever. They grew up in the same neighborhood, they went to the same schools, they followed the same career path, they had been the best man at each other's weddings, and, lifelong friends. Often went away for silly guys' holidays and so on like that, and they were just making happy lives together, and they knew each other, they were great friends, their family were great friends, and so on. You get the idea. Well, one particular year, it was coming up to the time that the guys would get away for a silly outing. I mean, it wasn't a family vacation. It was just the two guys getting together to celebrate being friends. And this year, they decided to do something different. They didn't want to go to another resort. They didn't want to go to a club or an amusement park or an adventure camp or something like that. This year, they decided they were going to flip the switch, completely change their lives up, and they were going to see how the other half lived. What they were going to do was leave the city and go out to the country. And they did it upright. They went to a used car lot. They bought themselves a beat up old pickup, and they went to a thrift store, and they traded in all their good, their good fancy designer stuff for old Carhartt barn coats and faded jeans and flannel shirts, and they made all the arrangements, and their families thought they were silly, but every camp they went to was some kind of a silly thing. So what else was new? And the day came, and off they went. They took their time away from work, and they loaded up. They threw a sack full of food and a cooler full of something into the truck, and off they went. And the idea was simple. They were going to drive south out of town, and they were going to drive until they didn't see anything familiar. And once they saw that they were in a place that wasn't familiar, they're going to get off of the big highway, take a county road, take a gravel road, take wherever the road might lead them, and have themselves a bit of an adventure out in the country. Well, they had been gone for a few days, and they had visited several small towns. They had eaten at some diners. They played pool. They drank some beer. They had a good time, and bit by bit, they found themselves further and further away from home, but they didn't care. They had the time. They had the money for gas back home. All was good. Well, one particular day, they had, they got up, they stayed in a little roadside motel, and they said, if we wanted to get away from it all from here, where would we go? And the nice old lady behind the counter said, well, gentlemen, go past the state highway. You take the second road off to the left. You follow that road down till the gravel runs out. And if you make a big right-hand turn, you'll find yourself in a place like nothing you'd ever seen before. And it sounded like just what they were looking for, and off they went. So they left the place and they went down and they took the second road off and they followed it till the gravel ended in a big sweeping dirt road, took them around a curve through a forest, and sure enough, they came into a big clearing, and there was a town. Well, you couldn't even really call it a town. It wasn't even a village. I don't even know if it qualified as a hamlet. It was more of a crossroads. There was an old general store, long, sprawling, one-story place with one rusty old gas pump and beat-up old wooden porch and the whole bit. And, there was a few houses across the street that had seen better days. There was an old fallen-down silo of some sort, a building that might have been the mayor's office or the post office. They had no idea, but it was getting on to lunchtime. They were getting a little hungry. They needed some gas and they needed some snacks. And they got up out of the truck, literally stepped down into a packed dirt parking lot. And they walked towards the general store. They walked past the gas pumps. They threw a few gallons into the truck, and they stepped up literally one step from the dirt up onto the old, worn-out, faded plank porch. And there was the handmade screen door with, that big spring on it that would screech out and slam you on the way in. And just as they were reaching the door and they were about to go inside, they heard a strange noise off to the side. And looking to the end of the porch, they saw a couple of different things. They saw an old threadbare couch. They say a rocking chair that was at least 100 years old with a man sitting on it that could have been the fellow that made it. And laying on the porch in front of the old man was a hound dog, definitely seen better days. And as they watched that old hound dog lay there, and he twitched a little bit, and he gave a little whimper and twitched again, and off they went into the store. Well, they walked around the store for a time. They paid for the gas. They asked the nice lady behind the counter if there was any food that they could get, and she agreed that she put together a little poke for them, a couple of sandwiches, a bit of a picnic, and They walked up and down the few aisles that this store had, looking at all the gewgaws and the doodads and the gimcrack and so on that they had there to sell to the tourists, which clearly they hadn't had for a long, long time. Made their way back to the coolers, and sure enough, they had Mountain Dew and they had Dr. Pepper, and they even had a couple of bottles of Yoo-Hoo. And it was a good time, and they picked up a few little trinkets to take home to the kids. They went up to the counter, paid the nice lady for the gas and for the sandwiches, and made their way out of the store. And thinking that they would go out and they would throw down the tailgate of the truck, they would just sit there, watch the traffic that this place didn't get go by while they enjoyed their sandwiches, maybe have a little snooze, and make their way back into town. Well, they went out the screen door. Sure enough, they stepped down to the porch, and as they stepped away, that screen door slammed bang behind them with that big spring, and they were just about to step off the porch down into that dirt parking lot when they heard that noise again. And looking over, sure enough, there was the old-timer still in the rocking chair, and there was the Hound Dog still on the porch. And as they looked again, that Hound Dog gave a little twitch, and he gave a little whimpering, and they were just going to go on their way, but the one fellow stopped, and he said, I have to know. And he turned towards the old man. He said, "Hey, old-timer, what's with the hound?" Well, the old fellow lowers his paper, and he looks over his glass. He said, "What you mean, what's with the hound?" And he said, "Why is the hound whimpering and whining like that?" The old man looks at the dog, looks back at them, and said, "Well, he's laying on a nail." Well, the second city fellow said, "He's laying on a nail?" The old man said, "Yeah, he's laying on a nail. It's an old wooden porch. Wood shrinks up. Sometimes the nail head pops up. Dumb dog's laying on a nail." Well, city boys look at each other again, and they shrug their shoulders, and they say, "Well, if he's laying on a nail and it's causing so much pain, why doesn't the dog just get up and move?" The old fella gives them a look of absolute disdain. You can tell in his head he's thinking city slickers, and leans over the railing to the left and spits out a big stream of tobacco juice and looks back at the fellows and says, "Well, I guess it don't hurt bad enough yet." Oh, friends, I don't know what your day's been like the last little while, but I've had a couple of doozies, and I needed to be reminded of this story today. Sometimes things bug us, and it doesn't matter how bad it bugs us. It seems we just can't get up off of whatever that nail is that's poking at us. And I'm not going to go off on some big fancy moral of the story, but I'm just going to wish you this, that whatever it is that's poking you today, I hope you can find the courage to get up off the nail. Take good care of yourselves and of each other, and we will see you soon. Cheers.